Do you want us to do testing? Are we speaking loud enough?
Should I not have this glass of water here?
Are we overthinking it?
You're overthinking it.
Right, okay, cool. So, Lola,
Yeah.
welcome to A New Table.
Thank you.
Thanks for being
Very
here.
excited to be here.
So you are completing the trilogy for
Amazing.
us in terms of Lechlade businesses, and also my last best friend who has a shop locally. Yeah, and you're going to be talking to us about all things related to, I mean, not just nutrition, but I mean, holistic wellness, etc. So I just want to kind of introduce you to our viewers and watchers. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about your credentials and your background?
Sure, no problem. So I grew up in Austria, hence the funny accent.
But see, I don't think you have a funny accent.
Do you not think so?
No, in my, I mean, yeah.
Because I spend a lot of time with, Geordies and Scottish people. So
Your husband.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so it all got a little bit skewed.
Shout out to Adrian.
Yeah. So I grew up in Austria in a very health conscious environment, I would say, with mum and dad who are very, very sporty, very health conscious. A lot of home cooked foods. So, a really, really good upbringing actually. And obviously, as soon as I could make my own decisions, I did everything unhealthy I could on this planet, because every teenager sort of rebels against their upbringing or their parents.
Yeah,
but then,
classic.
you then come around full circle. I think once you sort of mature a little bit, and by the time I was 21, 22, starting to have the first experience with, I wouldn't call them health problems, but just things that, like bad skins and, hormonal imbalances, and starting to be conscious about how do things that I eat and things that I do actually affect how I feel, because I think before that age you don't really care. Your body functions so amazingly well, and you can deal so amazingly well with all sorts of rubbish you put inside you.
Oh God, I miss my 20s.
Yeah, oh totally. you're not really bothered by it.
Yeah.
You think you're invincible. But the time does come when you do realise, maybe the things that I do and eat do have something to do with the way I feel. And so kind of then came full circle. My mum at the time started a traditional Chinese medicine course.
Oh, cool.
Which is also really super interesting. And then I decided to study nutritional therapy at university in London. So did my 3-year degree. Then
And that's a bachelor's, right?
That's a bachelor's degree.
It's a bachelor's in nutritional
therapy.
Yeah.
And then started working for a big nutritional company who's, who sent all these. They had like a big flagship store in London called, no idea what it was called.
It's because we're so old, guys.
It
we
had a
have
name.
just no memory.
It was 20 years ago.
But
18 years ago. But
they did what when you say it's a nutritional company?
They, in the basement, they had a massive nutritional and alternative medicine library.
Okay.
And then they stocked every product of every brand that manufactures nutritional supplements. So it was a huge nutritional pharmacy, really. And that was the ground floor. And then they had naturopathic doctors working upstairs, seeing patients and sending patients down for supplements. So, it was a really, really cool setup. So that was my first job in, to do with nutrition. And then I had my own practice for a while, a day a week. And then I started to work for some independent supplement companies in the educational program, and I did seminars for them, and educating people who own health stores so they can recommend things better to their
Oh, that's great. Okay.
To their customers. And then eventually ended up lecturing at the College for Naturopathic Medicine in London.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Did you not?
No.
Yes, I did.
Oh.
Sort of training the next generation of nutritional therapists. Then had a child, kind of went back to work part-time, moved from one side of the country to the other, and then realised I was just travelling a lot, around the country, doing all these seminars and talks and things, and kind of decided at one point I was just away from home too much. And then kind of ended up just looking at our immediate surroundings, and me was going, there's no health shop where I'm going to do my shopping. What's going to happen? And then the idea came about, do you know what? If I'm missing a health shop, surely there are other people who might be missing a health shop too. Why don't we open one? And that's what brought beginning of the end.
That's what brought
that
you
was
to
the beginning of this.
The beginning of the end. The beginning of the next start of
totally, the beginning of a totally amazing journey.
Which is actually where we're having this conversation right now,
Yes.
in the health shop.
That's it.
The health box.
The health box.
Which is a health
Yes.
shop.
I would call it? I would call it a health shop, definitely. I mean, even though we do offer plastic-free shopping as well, and all this environmentally
clothes and home accessories,
conscious
and,
things, all of that. But we are primarily a health shop.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say definitely.
I think, and we had a little bit of a chat before outside having coffee, and it was really important to set the tone about your credentials as a professional and an expert in the field of, you call it functional medicine, right?
Totally.
Because I think there's this a bit of a sort of misguided perspective of how when we talk about the, I guess, modern or Western medicine, that's where we have the experts and the professionals and the accredited doctors and whoever goes into the sort of like holistic, more natural, functional medicine are just hippies who don't really know what they're talking about, which is like couldn't be further from the truth, right?
Totally. I think there are so many important distinctions that need to be made. I mean, first of all, the challenge we have, as nutritional therapists, being a nutritionist or a nutritional therapist, it's not a protected title. It's like being a doctor or being a nurse or being a dietitian. You have to have gone through specific types of education and degrees in uni in order to be allowed to call yourself that.
Right.
So it's a protected title. Nutritionist or nutritional therapist is not. Anyone can call themselves a nutritionist. So you can go and do a 2-week online course, and after it, you can call yourself the same as I do, in a sense.
How come? Why is that?
Because it isn't. You've not gone through, the Western medicine, approved
process and
processes.
System. Yeah.
So it's not a protected title. So it's really hard actually for the public or for clients or customers to figure out, well, there are both nutritionists, who is really educated or who's got the credentials and who hasn't, and it's a total minefield. So I think it's always important to let people know that I've worked hard for my knowledge, and I haven't just done an online course, and it was a really, hard 3 years of initial study, and then another 15 years of constant,
learning and keeping
development
up to date,
and keeping up to date and learning, and you learn every day, and that's the fascinating bit about, working with humans and the human body and nutrition. Things are always changing. We know actually so little about the functionings of our own body, that there is every day we find out new things. It's a fascinating field to work in. And
you said something that I feel is worth saying, is that your educational background is also just as much evidence-based.
Totally. So nutritional therapy, and the degree of nutritional therapy is very evidence-based learning. So my first whole year of my degree was biomedicine, which is extremely evidence-based. I mean, you were looking at how cells are functioning, how organs are functioning, and then you've got pathology, and physiology, and so you're really learning the body from the inside out, kind of thing. Sometimes in more detail that you would do in a medical degree, because don't forget that in a medical degree the focus is really on diseases,
right,
symptoms to diagnose that disease,
and very specific too,
very specific, and then medication in order to address symptoms, disease. So it's a really linear path. They kind of go through, where in functional medicine, you know, the type of medicine we practice, it is much more holistic. It always sees the body as a whole. You always have to dig deeper and deeper and deeper to find the root cause of why things are happening, and then kind of work yourself up. So it's much more like a tree. You know, you start at the roots and at the bottom, and then, you know, you have to go down all these different branches until you sort of figure out why all these 20 different symptoms happening, and then realizing they're coming from the same root cause. By in sort of Western medicine, you would go down very linear paths, going like, this is this symptoms, you get this medication for that, and this is that symptom, you get a medication for that. And then, you know, a lot of people we see end up with, you know, 15, 20 different medications that are really not fixing anything.
Interesting. They're kind of just, they're addressing and fixing the symptoms.
Yes.
The problems that are at the surface, but maybe not looking at what's causing chronic issues and that sort of thing.
And I think this is what we mentioned before when we had a chat, is that, you know, the reason why more and more people seeking out what we now call alternative medicine, but let's not forget that our alternative medicine until 150 years ago was the only medicine, you know, the original medicine, you know, that,
and 150 years is like nothing in how long we've existed.
It's nothing, you know, like certain plants and things have been used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, so we have a huge amount of anecdotal evidence of these things working. So, you know, Western medicine is very, very new in a sense. So I always feel a bit weird calling it alternative medicine, because actually it's not. It's actually like our core human medicine we evolved with, in a sense. It's our original medicine, and I think we forgot a lot of sort of ancient knowledge that was always there, that we now see modern science rediscovering.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes, that's true.
That certain, you know, medicine systems like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine and shamans, you know, they've known this for 6,000 years. They just called it something different, but it's the same thing. And now you have science all of a sudden, you know, with a little microscope looking at the cell going like, oh, actually this happens. We go like, yeah, I know. You know, we've known this for a long time. But now science is advanced enough to actually be able to show it in a picture.
Right. And you're not...
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does, I think, and you're really explaining it well, because... and it's not to necessarily discount the benefits of Western medicine, but I think you said a term I really loved, and it's kind of like, it's like battlefield medicine.
Totally. And it is battlefield medicine, and that's how modern medicine evolved in the first place.
Right.
Through wars and people trying to kill each other and injuries. Right. And that's when we need modern medicine. If I break a leg, if I have like a 7-point fracture in my arm, you know, no supplement in the world will
spirulina's not going to fix your blown off leg. Like, we need surgeons.
Totally. And we are so grateful that we have Western medicine for exactly these kinds of scenarios. When you had a car accident, when your appendix is burst, when, you know, when you need an amazingly well-trained and educated surgeon to put your brain back together, and things like that. That's really where modern medicine should shine and come in. But unfortunately, the core system of Western medicine, it is not equipped to deal with modern chronic disease. It's just not, because modern chronic disease is not caused by a gunshot wound. Right. Or by stabbing, or by a car, you know, crashing into your legs. It is largely caused by your diet, your lifestyle, your environment, your genetics to some extent. But, you know, genes can be switched on and switched off. So, you know, we know now that just because you have a certain gene that encodes for a certain disease doesn't necessarily mean you will get that disease. You know, it's very much influenced by your environment and your lifestyle choices.
Or aggravated at least.
And all of that. But this linear system of looking at it, saying you've got a broken leg, doing something about the broken leg, that system is not equipped to deal with chronic disease. While a functional medical system is the perfect system to use, for chronic disease, because we look at where is all this coming from. Again, when you have a gunshot wound, you don't need to do much investigation. It's pretty obvious why it happened.
Right.
You don't need hours and hours of digging.
Unless you're a terrible doctor.
Yeah, exactly. And don't know what a bullet looks like or something. And then you have to wonder. So that's really straightforward.
Right.
But a lot of this chronic disease, and I think we shouldn't forget that either, we have created it ourselves to some extent. Yeah. Then again, if you look a few hundred years back, there's no such thing as chronic heart disease. No such thing as chronic diabetes, cancers. A lot, 95% of modern chronic disease just did not exist. Because our environment was so different, our lifestyle was so different. And our bodies just don't, evolution doesn't happen that quickly.
Right.
Our environment changes far too fast for our body to keep up. Like biochemically, how we work on the inside is still the same as we did 10,000 years ago.
Right.
There is no change. We might have changed in height a little bit. But how your liver deals with certain processes and how your digestive system works, it is the same.
So can you take us into, like, let's work different scenarios here. Explain to us, obviously very straightforward, for if you get stabbed or you break an arm, pretty straightforward, go to the hospital. What are the scenarios that people can understand where functional medicine can really help them?
Right. So I think what we see, what I've seen in clinic a lot, what we see in the shop a lot, is people come to us when they've exhausted the regular medical system. They've been to the channels, they've been to the GP, they've been to the referrals, they had all the ultrasounds and gastroscopies and MRI scans, all these amazing things you can have. And they ended up with
a dead end.
With the dead end.
Right.
With whether a diagnosis of something, very vague, like IBS or chronic fatigue, or, which usually gets thrown out a lot when people actually don't really know what's wrong. But, being in the medical system, you have to put a diagnosis on it, because if you don't, there is no medication to prescribe, and that's kind of the end goal of the whole process.
Okay, right.
Is prescribe medication. If there is no medication to prescribe, it's the end of the road. There's nothing they can do, and that is not the fault of that individual doctor or person or specialist. It's the fault of the system.
It's the parameters they have to work in.
And it is the end of their education.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's the end of the path for that person just because the knowledge of one specialist has ended.
Well, that's it.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's also very hopeful to hear, right?
Very. And it is very rewarding then speaking to people in the shop who really come with, right, I've been told I'm going to feel like this for the rest of my life because there's nothing I can do about it.
Feel like this in what sense? Like pain or?
Yes, chronic pain syndromes or chronic digestive issues or chronic energy problems.
Yeah.
And then they come into the shop and there is me, in a health shop telling someone, well, I'm sorry, but you've not been given the right information. There is a lot you can do about this. This is not the end of the road. There are, so many other things that you can do. But the difference is we kind of have to start at the beginning again and see where all of your problems came from in the first place. I'm not interested about necessarily all the different symptoms you have now and what kind of supplement I'm going to suggest, for them. This is not how it works. I'm interested in when did this all start?
Right.
5 years ago, 10 years ago. When did all of this start? What is sort of the driving factor that kind of brought on symptoms in the first place? And
what was your environment? Lifestyle, you said earlier.
Was that, trauma is a very, very real thing that has a very severe physiological impact.
Right.
On your health. So you see what happened at that time around when issues started, and kind of you sort of work backwards a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the goal is ultimately, we know your body is amazing, right? And your body can function incredibly well if you give it the right tools to do it with. So all we're really working towards is supporting bodily systems so they can perform to the best of their capacity.
Yeah.
And when you do that, a lot of symptoms that you would think kind of possibly
you have to
related,
deal with forever.
You know.
Yeah.
Or you think, oh my God, how can my headache be related to my digestion? You know, it's a different part of my body.
Right.
You know, there is no way. But it is, because everything in your body is connected.
Everything has like a chain reaction, and you don't know what's
totally. And just because it hurts in your head doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your head.
Of course,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is sort of another really new approach for people, because in just Western medicine, everything is separate. You have a specialist for, you know, for everything. You have your heart specialist, and you have your lung specialist, and you have your kidney specialist.
Sometimes with, you know, for a reason. But,
totally. Then again, if I have a ruptured spleen, I'd like to, you
see
know,
a
have
spleen
a spleen specialist. Totally, because that's the person who's going to know best about how to fix my spleen. Totally. But then again, coming back to chronic disease.
And chronic disease, just to really make sure we understand what that means.
So chronic disease, we're talking about a disease process that goes on over years.
Right.
That took years to develop, like diabetes, for example. So it's a disease that is not, you know, being able to be fixed by medication or other within a week or two.
You're just kind of like ongoing,
it's an ongoing
thing that you'll have to manage and suffer.
That you have to manage, that you need, you know, long-term care for, that is not life-threatening.
Okay.
You know, but that is, you know, obviously impacts your life and needs treatment.
Okay.
So that's really what we're talking about with chronic disease. Chain of thought. Yes, that in chronic disease, all these
things are
you know, that know so much about the individual, you know, little
specialty,
little bits, don't talk to each other.
Right.
Because they have the separate specialist areas.
Or if they try, it's very difficult.
And they see, you know, every bodily system very separate.
Right.
Whereas in functional medicine, which is especially important for chronic disease, we need to see the body as a whole. Nothing happens isolated.
Interesting.
Nothing.
Okay, yeah.
Everything is connected.
Right.
And, you know, that doesn't just go for the human body, it goes for everything. Everything is connected, you know, and it is such a kind of strange human thought.
I mean, I don't think so. I actually think that when you hear it, like, it's strange in the sense that's not usually how we're taught to think, but hearing you say that, it just makes a lot of sense, because our body is a whole, and we know that how we I mean, I've been seeing, I don't know, I was reading recently, and I'm actually noticing that more and more online, how we're talking about, let's say, IBS, so you mentioned that earlier, about being so related to anxiety in a lot of cases, or to other things, so it's not just sitting in one place. And I mean, I think we've all experienced how sometimes, you know, living a stressful event or something will impact other things in our life, and that could also mean our body, right?
And it will, and again, because it is not. Yes, we do, you know, we do address, obviously, you know, physical health.
Sure, yeah.
You know, but it's so much more than just physical health. And I think this is another picture of, you know, holistic medicine in a sense. Yes, we look at your physical health, but then we also look at your mental health.
Right.
And we need to look at your spiritual health.
Right.
And, you know, these are all really big sort of areas that need to come together in order to achieve wellness. You know, we can't just say, right, okay, your body is functioning, and now be happy with that. It's not enough. You know, your mental health state needs to be well as well. And, you know, you need to be spiritually connected to something, and it doesn't matter what that is, you know. So we're not talking religion or, you know, anything way out there. You know, you can be spiritually connected to anything that resonates with you.
And finding purpose in your life, and joy in your career, or
following
what you do,
like a particular sport, or you
passion,
know,
all these important things.
Yeah, totally. If that's religion for you, or if that's, you know, it really doesn't matter. But it's purpose and you know, fulfillment and that kind of thing. Yeah. And all these three things need to come together in order, you know, to be, you know, experiencing truly wellness. But we've got to start somewhere.
Sure.
So it's, and you know, looking at, you know, physiological health is a good starting point, and mental health definitely.
So so let's say like just going back to playing different scenarios, just so people can maybe perhaps project themselves, and or maybe they'll find you might talk about things that might resonate with them. So what are like some of the most common reasons for people to come to you that that you've noticed, for example, or some of the
I think we've seen things really change during and after COVID.
Okay.
Because our shop, we were open throughout all the lockdowns. We were lucky.
Yeah.
Because we sold food, we were always classed as essential.
Yeah.
Our business.
I know, that's how I met you.
Exactly.
I just came in and hung out here all the time.
Exactly. Our business would have been a very short-lived business if it
couldn't stay open.
Because we opened the big shop a month and a half before the first lockdown.
Oh wow! Okay, I didn't know about that timeline.
Yeah.
I just knew that you guys were an essential shop. Yeah. And again, because you also, and we'll talk about that later, but the food and everything.
Yeah. So we had a small shop before, like it was a little cupboard, seriously.
Also in Lechlade.
Also literally down the high street. So we had that for a year, and then the bank closed down, and we got a chance to take over the building. Yeah. And it took us about 3 or 4 months to renovate it. And then we opened on the 1st of February, and then I think in the middle of March.
Yeah, that's true. The world
happened.
Lockdown. Yeah.
Which was just the most bizarre time I think any of us have ever lived through. And I think we really found ourselves in a really unique position, not just being a shop that happens to be open, that people happen to be able to buy food when most of other things were closed.
Yes.
But we found that our regular customers, instead of coming in once a week, they came in 3 times a week.
Okay. Because
it was a point of contact. And there was this little safe haven where just things didn't seem as bad as out there, where people could just talk about how they felt about it, and how they were feeling and how they were coping with it,
right?
Without being judged, and just with being listened to.
And obviously at the time, like the health and how to ensure your safety was a hot topic that I'm sure a lot of people wanted to talk about with the professional.
But do you know what we found more so? It was the anxiety and sheer terror people came in with, of being so scared and so afraid what's happening in that world. So for us, what we observed, the mental health struggle was so much greater than the physical struggle.
Right.
Because, if someone was concerned about, getting COVID or had family members who had COVID, we knew what to do about it. There are very clear natural health protocols.
Sure.
That you do about it, that have been proven to work, that have been used in America, in New York, and in hospitals that were hit with the first waves of COVID. We were quite, we knew how to support people.
Right. Yeah.
Through it, and so that was almost the easy side. The really challenging bit was looking after people's mental health. And I think that stayed that way throughout COVID, and still now. Mental health is a really, really big challenge for people, and we're definitely seeing a rise of young people coming in with anxiety, panic attacks, not so much depression, I would say, or low mood, but the anxiety.
How do you define depression versus like ongoing anxiety
so depression is usually low mood for no reason.
Low mood, like sadness
like unexplained.
Right.
Sadness, very low lows, without almost a triggering factor, if that makes sense. Yeah. But young people, or people who come in, with anxiety and panic attacks, there is a very real trigger for them. What brings it about, and they're afraid of certain things because they feel very insecure in their environment, and what we lived through with COVID was very, very challenging mentally, and a lot of things have just been completely, the rug's been pulled on the people's feet.
Right.
Totally.
And then people have real physical reactions to that, right?
Totally.
That anxiety.
And we're now living in a world where we just cannot predict what's going to happen next. Everything feels very unstable.
Yeah, because we're traumatized.
And insecure.
Right.
in that kind of way. So we've been, you know, supporting people with mental health.
And so how have you...
A lot.
Right, so...
Sleep, you know, just goes hand in hand. I think every single person who walks in this shop has a sleep issue.
Oh, sleep issues.
Yes.
Okay, and you're connecting that to anxiety,
totally.
mental health.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that has, like, that trickles down into physical health as well, right? If you're chronically lacking sleep.
Absolutely. And you know, it is physical health, because it's a neurotransmitter imbalance. You know, you're not producing the right neurotransmitters at the right time. Most people's brains are stuck in this fight or flight situation, you know, in a very heightened state of constant, you know, panic, constant tension.
Yeah.
Because for our bodies, the only thing our body knows is fight or flight or rest and repair. That's it. It's quite black and white in a sense.
Oh, so like if you're in fight or flight all the time, you're not resting and repairing, which is something the body needs to do daily, right?
No. Yeah. And again, your body, your nervous system doesn't understand 21st century lifestyle. You know, your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, which is the nervous system who controls things you don't have to think about, like your heartbeat, your breathing, your digestion. That's your autonomic nervous system. That functions in exactly the same way as when we were cavemen, right?
Yeah.
And that is a very simple time,
primal,
for your autonomic nervous system, in a way, you know, a lot less complex, because your stressor is always going to be life-threatening most of the time, right? You either need to run away from something or you need to fight something. So it is very fast and intense stress. Right? Where your autonomic nervous system needs to upregulate your heartbeat, and you need to upregulate your breathing, and you need to have, you know, more brain activity in order to either fight something or run away from something. But the point is, this state of heightened activity doesn't last very long, because whether you manage to run away, you know, and you can't do that forever, or you end up in a fight and you survive, or you don't. Right. So we're talking about a very short time that happens, and then conflict is resolved, and then you're alive and happy, or you're not. But 21st century life just does not work like that. Right. There's ongoing, constant. Yeah. This constant low-level stress, and then throw a couple of traumas in between, you know, very, you know, severe stress situation. Yeah, for fun. And then, exactly, because otherwise life would be boring, wouldn't it? And then you have a perfect recipe for a disaster. For this constant activation of your fight and flight response that just causes havoc with your brain, totally drains your resources, because you're constantly running on, you know, so much higher and so much faster than you should. Which then eventually, you know, has an impact on your heart health, on your blood sugar levels, on your mental health, on, you know, and knock-on effect on on your gut health too, I guess. Oh my God, massively, on so many different things. So if we would then go and say, right, we're now going to give you something for your sleep, and now we're going to give you something because you're feeling a bit sad, and now we're going to give you something for your gut, for your and then we're going to give you something for your energy, because that's low, obviously, now, because you've, you know, been like running around. Because now we're also giving you something to sleep. So and now obviously your periods are kind of up and down a little bit, so we're going to give you something for that as well. That's exactly what we not want to do. Yeah. Because then, like, you're just addressing, like you said, you're addressing the symptoms, and you're not actually addressing it as a full picture. Exactly. So why would we do that with medication? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But that's exactly what happens. So if someone who is experiencing all these things that we just talked about goes to a GP, that's exactly what would happen. Right. We'd go like, right, we give you an antidepressant because you're feeling a little bit sad, and then we give you some Imodium to, you know, so you don't have diarrhea anymore because it affected other things, and then we give you something else because your blood pressure is a little bit high. Where instead we should be looking at, what are we going to do about this driving force that is driving all of these things? And the thing is, we can't change, you know, the way the world works at the minute. That's it. We're born into this time, and we have to get on with it. Right. And then we kind of evolved a system called... That's how British of you, by the way. Just get on with it. Yeah, just shut up, get on with it. No, you should totally talk about it. And then we evolved a system called adaptive health. Okay. Oh, I've never heard that term. What's that? Which is about... it's kind of explaining that your body will never be in perfect equilibrium.
Okay.
Yeah, there will never be no stress,
Right.
no, you know, perfect emotional balance,
Yeah.
total happiness, amazing diet, no toxins. You know, this situation will never happen.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, our bodies are not made to function on that.
No,
to function
no, because
on
you
that
do
level.
need a little bit of challenge, and I mean
Yes,
to keep
yeah.
to keep sharp, if you will.
And nature
Yeah.
doesn't work in that way. You
Right.
know, the conditions are not always
Yeah.
perfect. You know, people thrive when you are able to adapt
Yeah.
efficiently to the challenges in your environment. And that's what adaptive health is about. That we can't avoid stress, we can't
Right.
avoid, you know, toxins. I mean, we can, but we can't avoid all of them.
Right.
You know, we need to be able, our bodies need to be able to adapt to our environment as best as we can, and as best as they can. So we need to support our bodies nutritionally, and, you know, to function to their best possible ability to be able to adapt to all these different challenges.
So what would be an example? So I guess you apply adaptive
Yeah.
health in your approach.
Yeah.
What's an example of that?
So
let's say.
so for example, you are not supposed to be totally relaxed all the time. You know, like sometimes we have the idea that, you know, we need to do yoga and meditation, and we all need to be like super chilled.
Oh, snooze fest.
You know, and calm all the time.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be like that,
Right.
because if I'm driving a car and someone jumps in front of the car, I want to,
You-
react quickly.
Yeah, you don't
and-
want to be
and-
calm. You need to have
no,
a reaction
I don't want to be calm and chilled. I
adjust.
want to
and-
react quickly.
Yeah,
and I want
that's-
to do the right thing, and my brain wants to be switched on. And that is adaptive health. You want your body to change in that moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
Or
does.
for example, your blood sugar levels are not always totally great and balanced, you know, after
Right.
me. When you eat a sugary meal, or you think like, oh my god, I need to do a 5-hour hike, you know, you want to eat a different meal so your blood sugar levels do go up and do spike, so you do have more energy. You know, you have different requirements for different situations, and your
Right.
body is made for that. Your body is not made to be just
At a
flat
constant.
equilibrium all the time. Your body is made for these challenges and up and downs, but we just need to support it accordingly, because otherwise you just drain resources and you end up not being able to adapt properly,
Right.
you know, to stresses and things. And then, you know, if something really tiny happens in your life that is really quite insignificant, but you start perceiving it as a massive stressor instead of this cascade of stress response in your body, that is not good adaptive health, if that makes sense, because your body shouldn't be reacting that way.
You said something before, and I'll quote you. It's not my quote, but how you were talking about, you know, sort of like Western medicine versus functional health, and I think it speaks to this adaptive approach. Is we've kind of we focus so much sometimes on how medicine can work for the body versus how medicine can work with the body, right? So it's like it's finding ways to work with our nature, which requires constant.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the biggest challenges as a sort of, call it alternative, you know, healthcare practitioner, is that it will never be a quick fix. It will never be, you know, a pill for an ill.
Right.
Like conventional medicine works, you know. For the patient, conventional medicine is very convenient and very easy, because you go to someone, you get your diagnosis, right or wrong, you get your medication, and all you have to do is swallow the tablet.
Right. No lifestyle changes.
That is your responsibility to swallow the tablet. All other responsibility is kind of sort of pawn off to someone else. Nothing to do with you. You know, doctor said I have this, doctor said I have this diagnosis, doctor said I should take this medication, and now take it, and now it's pretty much up to them if I feel, you know, good or not good. Where with sort of alternative medicine, all the responsibility is really given back to the patient, which is so important. But
responsibility or power, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it is really responsibility of your own health, and you are responsible for your own health, which then in turn empowers you to, you know, you have the power of how you feel, you know, and you also have the power to change it. But it's always the most important, the hardest thing is because you have to do the work yourself, because I cannot give you one supplement that will fix everything. You know, I can only suggest to you what I think you should change change in your lifestyle, in your diet, which will also involve a couple of supplements probably. But it is then over to the patient or the client to make those changes. And that is the hardest thing to do.
Right.
Is to actually take responsibility and say, I cannot keep living my life as I have because it led me to this point. And only if I do something different, I will get a different outcome.
Right. And like, it's challenging because you got to break bad habits.
Yes.
You got to, I mean,
because
you know,
it involves
face your own
work.
Right. And and apply discipline and that sort of thing.
And it's hard giving up things you like.
Yeah.
And it's hard changing habits. And unfortunately, we've grown up in a society where we're not used to doing that because we're used to going to the doctor, getting a tablet, and that will fix everything.
Everything's a quick fix.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, we are not, and that's I think what I said before, we are not trying to do things for your body. We are trying to support your body so it does things itself again. And only then can you achieve long-term health. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
When you have your body operating at its best possible level, and you do that with the right nutrients, and you know,
lifestyle
diet and lifestyle,
well.
and obviously exercise. You know, and a lot of different things are involved in it. You know, it is not an easy, straightforward path. You know, it takes commitment. But I think this is the really hard bit. You know, that we cannot do things for you, that really the actual work you have to do yourself.
So you come, let's say, you know, somebody, what's the typical things outside of us, obviously mental health, anxiety, that usually people would come to you about is, you said we talk about chronic issues. Is this like things like chronic pain, things with, you said digestive issues, things like that?
Yeah, I think so. The things we see a lot, you know, was the anxiety things, you know, that we talked about, and we can suggest some very, you know, simple remedies to sort of get your autonomic nervous system out of this fight or flight state into rest and repair state, and we can give you some, you know, quite quick relief, at least to give you this window of thinking clearly again, of being able to make other changes.
But is there like one type of formula you would
choose? And you see, and I think that's where sort of another facet of alternative medicine comes in, that there is never one formula that will fit everyone, ever. Because everyone is different, and even though we all have a heart and a liver and a digestive system and the brain,
hopefully we have a brain.
It would be an advantage. Biochemically, we all function slightly different.
Right.
So there will never be one formula that fits everyone.
And we have different life factors and environments.
Totally. Totally. I mean, broadly speaking, okay, a probiotic, probably, you know, good gut bacteria, that probably will be beneficial for everyone because it's genuinely missing in our environment. An omega-3 fish oil will probably be beneficial for everyone because it is so missing in everyone's diet. But whatever symptoms people come in with, if it is poor sleep, or if it is menopause, or if it is fertility issues, or if it is digestive problems, and doesn't matter if that's like acid reflux or IBS or constipation, the protocol will be slightly different for each and every one, because all of these problems in all of these different people might come from different sources. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
One person's headache might not come from the same source as another person's
someone else's headache.
And that's why I think, you know, personalized nutrition and personalized medicine is so important. Because we need to see each person and each human as an individual.
Right.
And tailor programs towards that individual, and not just blanket prescribe one thing that we think will just work for everyone.
But you did say that there are certain things that you would say in general are probably beneficial for everybody, and you mentioned, you know, probiotics, because we're lacking it so much in our diets. You know, I know that the conversation about you know, we shouldn't need supplements because you know, we should be able to get everything already in nature. So how come?
It's an argument I hear so many times.
Right.
And do you know what? I wish it was true. It'd be amazing if that was true. But you know, and it can get quite depressing sometimes when we talk about these things. Is that unfortunately it is impossible to get all our nutrition just from food.
Right.
Nowadays, yeah.
Nowadays. Because obviously
it
thousands
used to be.
of...
Oh my God, totally. So again, going back to our bodies biochemically, still functioning very much the same as 10,000 years ago. Our bodies are really made for a very calorie dense diet, probably, between 6,000 and 7,000 calories a day.
Wow. Okay.
Not of chocolate and ice cream
right.
and burgers.
So it's like the types
but
of
a very
calories.
nutrient dense diet.
Right. Nutrient dense being like
nutrient dense,
high in fat,
high in fat, high in protein. So we're talking meat, eating the whole animal, fish, eating the whole fish. Nuts, seeds, root vegetables, greens. Everything we ate was very nutrient dense.
And also grown in healthy soil.
And also grown in a healthy soil with all minerals and everything present.
Yeah, because that's what the vegetables take. Yeah.
Totally. So that's really what our bodies are made for. And don't forget the daily exercise we used to do just by living.
Running away from
it was very
danger.
But it doesn't matter if it was that, or if it was working in the fields or tending after animals, or in big tribes and looking after children, having a lot of children. These are all very active, very demanding things to do.
It doesn't burn as many calories to go to grocery shop.
To go to Tesco's every day. No, totally not. And also we lived outdoors.
Right.
We were very connected to the outdoors, to the sun, vitamin D. Our brains produce certain hormones according to the sunshine and according to darkness. Our life now is very different. So unfortunately, the way our bodies are made, the way our food is grown nowadays, the way our food chain works, that we hardly ever pick vegetables when they're ripe, or pick fruit when they're ripe.
Right. Because it like matures later once
because
picked,
it has to be transported. We want to eat strawberries in January, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to have some granola with blueberries on it on Christmas Eve. I don't know, maybe. So they need to be imported from very far away,
or grown in an indoor environment. Yeah.
Our soils are so heavily farmed, not responsibly farmed. To deplete every possible mineral that's in there. Then our meat is not grown naturally anymore. Our cows are not grazing wild lands anymore.
Yeah.
Where meat actually used to be very high in omega-3 and very nutritious and all of these things. So even if you make every effort to have a good balanced diet,
you're probably still lacking
unfortunately,
things.
You will still be lacking.
Oh wow.
But it is not all doom and gloom, because we can do things to make up for that. And they can be really, really simple things. And one of those things is eat locally and eat seasonal. We don't need to eat bananas in January. It is not in our environment here. We don't grow bananas here in the UK. And we just need to focus on foods that we grow here in your immediate environment, where you know where they're coming from, where you know where they were grown, where they don't need transporting miles and miles, and foods that is in season, because food that is in season will harvest it when it's ripe to eat, when it's full of nutrition and full of antioxidants.
It's so interesting because you're not the only expert. You're not. We're obviously chatting with different experts in different fields, but you guys, it's go back to saying the same things.
Yes, and I think that's where we all connect on a certain level. We are sort of experts in our fields, but I think when you start looking at things holistically and you start looking at things how everything is connected, it doesn't matter if you're in natural farming, or if you're in nutrition, natural medicine, it all starts. It all starts connecting. It all starts sort of connecting the dots, how important these things are. And back to kind of sort of eating local produce and eating things that are in season, spending more time outdoors, and yes, supplements do play a role, but I always say it is 80% diet, 20% supplements.
Okay.
And we use supplements for two
because
reasons.
I can't be eating McDonald's every single day and
take 10 different supplements
and be like, I'm gonna be fine.
Because you won't. But there are really two main scenarios where we work with supplements, and one of them is if you are deficient in something, and we need to raise levels of something quickly and efficiently. And then sometimes people go like, oh, can I not just eat more chickpeas?
Right.
You know, because they're rich in magnesium. So should I just eat more chickpeas? And I was like, well, you know, you'd have to eat 2 kilos of chickpeas a day.
Yeah.
Which is obviously very
to catch up. Almost.
You know, to get the magnesium levels that you would need to make up for your deficiency, which is obviously very counterproductive for your digestion.
Yeah.
I would never say anybody to eat 2 kilos of chickpeas a day. Don't do that. And then also we go back to the next problem is we don't know how much magnesium is in your chickpea anymore.
Right.
Right. We just don't know. You know, 200 years ago, it might have been 60 milligrams, but now maybe is it 5? Is it 10?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It is a huge difference. So we use supplements to correct obvious deficiencies, but we also use supplements therapeutically, in therapeutic levels to correct the function of a specific system.
Okay. Can you give me an example of what that is?
Like, for example, we use vitamin C in very high doses in certain scenarios because it is a non-antiviral. So for example, if you feel like you're coming down with a cold and you get the first signs, we give you a gram of vitamin C every hour.
Oh, is that why?
For 24 hours.
I didn't realize that.
Because we can totally stop viral replication.
That's so interesting because, I mean, obviously I think it's a common knowledge, take vitamin C if you have a cold. Never knew why.
Yeah, and the thing is vitamin C, you know, or people say, yeah, it's great for immune system. It is great for your immune system, you know, but that is an example of how you would use it therapeutically in really high doses to get, you know, to get a system back into balance, if that makes sense.
Oh, so that's why every time I come and I have a bit of a sniffle,
I shove the vitamin C.
You shove the vitamin C.
I take this now every hour, and you can. You can,
no questions asked. I just do what you tell me.
You can stop this totally. Oh, you know, and another example is omega-3 oils, fish oils. You know, we know when we give them in much higher doses than you would be able to eat them, they have a massive beneficial effect on joint health, on heart health, on brain health, on eye health. So we can do very specific things in therapeutic doses naturally. And the beauty about that is it's side effect free and it's non-toxic. But the thing
which can't really necessarily is not the case with other prescribed medicines. Yeah,
most prescribed medicines it is the case. There are lots of side effects and they are very toxic.
Right.
But then again, they have their place. But I think the challenge with what I call nutraceuticals as opposed to pharmaceuticals is you can't give everyone the same thing at the same dosage.
Right.
You have to always consider the individual and see where they're coming from and where they are in their disease progress and what else is going on, and then decide what supplements you give at what dosage. And this is why, you know, we have qualified and educated nutritional therapists who are able to make these decisions and make a judgment call, you know. And this is why not everyone can just, you know, stand in a health shop and say, oh yeah, take some vitamin C for immunity, it'd be fine.
I think what you guys brought to, I mean, not only the town of Lechlade, but to like the surrounding towns, because I know people from, you know, a little bit further down will drive to the health box and come to consult, come to get their supplements. But also you guys carry, because we're talking about like nutritional health, you guys have also a lot of food, and I think you've made choices in the kinds of foods and brands that you carry in your shop, right?
Totally. And you know, just to, before we talk about the food thing, just to wrap up,
oh yeah, sure,
kind of the whole health sort of wellness thing that we do here in the shop. And, you know, because a really beautiful thing actually happened that, you know, that I'm very proud of, that we managed to create a space here in the shop where people can come and just freely talk about what they're concerned with. You know, they can talk about their health problems, they can talk about their mental health problems, and they feel like, you know, they found a safe space where they've been listened to and they've been heard and where they can get help. And, you know, that makes me, you know, emotional, but also really proud to have created a space like that.
Oh, no, you can't cry, because, you know, I
cry
when you cry.
I am not crying.
No one's crying.
No one's crying. But it is an amazing thing, you know, to see people experience. And, you know, you provide a space for them to do that, and it's fun. It's great.
I think
anyway,
that's...
onto food.
Yeah, no, but I think it's... We're both criers. We like to trigger each other.
It's true.
But no, I think, and I'll just say something about that. I think there's something that's really magical. And you know, because we talk about the patient to doctor trust and relationship, and I think you really feel that you're not just a, you know, your life isn't just in a document. Someone can come to you, you know their names, you know their families, you know their history. You know, there's a lot more connection. It's very human. I think coming in here too, the environment isn't sterile. They're speaking to somebody where, I guess because you don't have so many limitations in the parameters in which you have to work and interact with the person you're trying to help. I think it opens up opportunities for better understanding of what they're going through, right?
Totally. And you know, we don't have this 10-minute, you know, time window and this computer screen and, you know, this preset formula, you know, that GPs have to go through. Obviously, we don't diagnose here in the show. This is a really important thing to point out. You know, this is not within our qualifications at all, and it's something we would never do. You know, obviously, you know, we always are very conscious of what we call red flag symptoms, you know, that we would always refer back to the GP, because it is not my job to diagnose or treat or cure. You
guys aren't trying to...
This is not what we do.
No, and you guys work with each other in a way.
Of doctors, that would be, you know, totally wrong, and this is not our place. You know, but at least we can take the time to listen. And you know, I hear it so many times that people then actually say, oh, do you know what, this is the first time someone actually listened to my symptoms and my problems, and no, actually no one's ever mentioned this to me, why my headache is related to maybe just low magnesium levels. No, and they've been 3 years through MRI scans and all sorts of things, and then sometimes, not always, it can be as straightforward as, you know, try 400 milligrams of magnesium a day, see how you feel, and they come back a week later and say, oh my god, gone.
Wow.
You know, again, it's not always like that, but you know, it does happen a lot. So,
I mean, obviously people can just walk into your shop. Obviously not all health shops have a certified nutritionist with them, but the health box does have that. Where people can just walk in and get a appointment free consultation, advice. And then you guys obviously carry a lot of different products here that they can try out and test out and start their own, like you said, empowered investigation about their health.
Absolutely. I think that's
so there's, I mean, we see in the background supplements, things like that, but also the food and the kind of brands that you carry. And I know that you guys also have, I mean, I know we talked about nutrition a lot, but you know, you guys also have very strong values about plastic free, zero packaging, you know, organic as much as possible. Why did that come into play in how you chose to set up a business?
Right. So I think we're going back to, you know, as you said, once you start kind of connecting the dots, you see that, you know, you can't just practice nutrition and ignore everything else that's going on in the world, because it does affect us, and it has an effect on your body and on your lifestyle and everything. And you know, eating organic foods is sort of, you know, the cornerstone of how to start looking after your body and things, because you know, we want toxic free nutrition, you know, which is the thing what we, you know, owe to ourselves and owe to our body. And this is why, you know, solely stocking organic foods is just, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Why would I put toxic things into my body on purpose if I'm trying to, you know, support bodily function, get rid of toxic material and things?
And then what you put back into the world with waste and plastic, obviously that comes back to you. So if you want to avoid that as much as possible.
Oh my god, we want our food grown in a healthy environment. We want the fish that we eat to, you know, thrive in healthy oceans. We want, you know, the cattle and the animals that we eat to live, you know, happy lives in a good environment. So we can't sit here and then go, well, I just put everything in plastic and, you know, throw it into the landfill. It's just, it would be a total paradox. And then again, I know we're up against so much, you know, big industry, corporations, who at the end of the day do what they want. Yeah.
It does feel, I know the conversation
Yeah.
always comes back to, you know, what's the point? Will my individual impact, you know, it's like a drop in the ocean. Will it
Yeah.
even have any kind of...
And it can be really, really challenging at times
Yeah.
when you come up to that.
And hopeless.
Oh, totally. But I think, you know, with everything that's going on in the world, you know, in general, I think it's very easy to lose your mind if you get just fixated on all these terrible things.
The too big picture.
On this really, really big picture, and it can drive you insane. And that at the end of the day, really all you can do is focus on your family, on what you do, on the choices that you make, that you're happy living with, you know, and think, how, you know, I want to know and be happy about how I treat this planet and how I treat my environment and how I look after my family, and that's how I make my choices.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, if we most things, you know, that we sort of ingredient things we stock are, you know, without packaging, and obviously you bring your own, but even if it's not, it's in compostable packaging.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. I forget what the brand is called, but I didn't realize until I read it, because it looks like plastic, but it's not for the compost. It's super cool.
So it's sort of, we've got a great wholesaler called CLF, and it's their sort of own brand.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, they package everything in home compostable packaging. And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, they're a small wholesaler, you know, that they supply independent health stores. But I'm just thinking they can do it, you know, for not an extortionate price.
Right.
They can do it.
Yeah.
Why can someone else not do it? Why can big industry not do it?
Yeah.
You know, there is no argument really. Why not everyone should be doing that.
I think this is why it's important to have these conversations and I guess expose people to what is actually available, you know, in terms of not just the products and the contents, but like the packages, the packaging, and also how brands and companies are choosing certain like aspects of their entire production change, that they can then choose to support brands that that are more aligned with a sustainable future.
Totally. And you know, like, I get it, some things need to be in plastic, you know,
like what though?
Then again, like for example, if you want to have great organic skincare that's toxin free, right,
I can relate to that.
Yes, exactly. You sometimes need to package it in plastic, and you can't package it in paper or in glass because it doesn't contain any preservatives, and it will go off.
Okay.
Just a simple example. But the thing is, again, plastic in itself could have been a great human invention, you know, if we use it responsibly.
Right, yeah, of course.
You know, it always comes down to that, isn't it? Because even if I have to buy something in a plastic bottle, make sure you reuse it and reuse it again. And if you're done using it, repurpose it to something. You know, use it for as long as you can, you know, before it then hopefully will be recycled.
Yeah, which is why, like, yes, okay, fine, you buy things with plastic, but at least companies who have some sort of plastic recycling program, or, you know, this bottle was made from reused water bottles and that sort of thing. I mean, I think one thing when we were talking to Tim and also to Max, you know, sometimes there's not like a black and white. It's not black and white. There's not a one-all solution. I think there's like different gradients of how you can just be a little bit more mindful in what you're choosing to buy, and
Totally. And let's also not, you know, fall into the trap of being totally judgmental to people who, like, you know, buy something in plastic, because you know, there might be a reason for, you know, so we need to practice a little bit of tolerance as well, because in my field with nutrition and things can become very extreme and very judgmental, actually. So it's a fine line sometimes, and we need to remember, you know, we are not all perfect. You know, we can't do everything all the time, but, you know, we can do little bits most of the time.
I'm glad you're mentioning that, because that's something that I've talked about a lot. That's also been driving me to do this, to have these conversations, is because, you know, I found myself being in these different conversations within specific industries where it does feel very exclusive. It's like if you are not 100%, you know, you switch your entire lifestyle and you go 100% organic, you go 100% off grid, you go 100% carbon neutral, then you don't belong here.
Exactly.
Which is, you know, and then it makes it feel very daunting for people who might be curious, who might be interested in just understanding a little bit more and starting to apply, you know, just small little better actions every day. It makes them feel like that's not good enough, which actually is further from the truth, because I think collectively small gestures really can have an impact.
Totally. And I think, you know, looking back 10 years ago, things have already changed a lot when it comes to, you know, reusable plastic. There was a big change, you know, when David Attenborough first spoke about, you know, plastics in the ocean, and that's what really started this whole thing. So I think we've already achieved a really big change, you know. And, you know, we get small setbacks every now and again, and just things where you just go like, this does not make sense at all. But I think, you know, we have moved forward, and I think, like, looking at the environment, I think these are the important things. You know, we should really focus about putting less rubbish, you know, less plastics into our oceans, putting less toxic chemicals in our rivers, you know, putting less chemicals onto our soils, you know, that just kills everything, you know, planting more trees, you know, stopping deforestation. These are really the important things that I believe, you know, will, you know, save the planet if it can be saved. You know, these are the things
I think
we should be focusing about.
No, I agree with you, and I think that at the end of the day, when people are, you know, because you hear a lot, especially in young people, and I don't blame them because we're young too, but I don't blame young people who have this sort of disenchanted outlook on life now, where they're like, well, what's the point of continuing, like you said, because but you have to look at it as, fair enough, right? What's the point of continuing? But then consider then what are the risks of stopping any efforts completely. And, you know, that's there is a level of certainty, but not full certainty, that the future cannot be hopeful if you continue to try, but it will certainly be hopeless if we stop trying.
Totally. And I think is maybe let's not sort of pursue this illusion of going back to normal or going back to how it was, because it never never will. No. You know, we just, and I hate the term the new normal, because it's kind of sort of a COVID term, right? But, you know, we live in a totally ever-changing world, you know, and is that the climate or is that our society and things? But I think the point is, things have always changed. Our planet has always changed. Our climate has always changed. Things just constantly change. Nothing always stays the same. And then again, it's about how do we adapt.
Adaptive approach. Full circle.
Totally,
I love it.
I've done that beautifully, I think. How do we adapt to the world that we're living in? You know, how do we treat it? How do we best live in it? How do we thrive in it? How are we healthy in it? Which is going to look different now than it did 200 years ago.
Sure.
Which is going to probably look different again in 100 years time, where there'll be different challenges. You know. So it's all about, you know, making the best with, you know, what you've been given,
what you have,
and what you have, totally.
And the more knowledge, the more understanding of different aspects of your life, seeing things through different lenses, the better choices you probably can make, just because they're a little bit more informed,
and,
right?
You know, if I could, you know, if you'd say one thing is like move a little bit away from the mainstream. You know, move away from the mainstream media, sort of kind of just open your view a little bit wider.
Don't dispel the info you have, but just widen your you can
widen your view a little bit. You know, look at alternative things. Don't just stare down this barrel and think, you know, this is the only way. This is the only way it is. You know, there is so much more when you start looking at it.
At the very least, that knowledge can certainly be really complementary to our understanding of the world and of ourselves.
Absolutely, totally.
So, the health box in Lechlade. Those who cannot necessarily travel here, you guys are online now.
They can shop online.
Great.
Yes, they can't get my advice online, obviously, but they can at least buy the products.
Okay. And you guys serve, I guess you guys ship around the UK? Or?
Yeah, we ship UK wide. A bit difficult now to ship to Europe, unfortunately, because of Brexit, so we're not quite there yet.
Right.
But we ship UK wide, yes, totally. And, you know, for people who are local, relatively local, all our plastic-free items, they're all available for click and collect now as well.
Oh,
so
great.
if that's more convenient,
Love
you
that.
can do that too.
Any final words, Lola Fisher?
Oh, it's been such a pleasure to be on this and just to be able to talk about what I'm passionate about for an hour. I could do this all day long.
Yeah.
So it's been so great. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
You're welcome.
And, well, we hope, I mean, this isn't the last time.
This will not be the last time we see each other.
No.